Impulse. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, welcome to the June 29th, 8 a.m. meeting of the Southborough Board of Health. And I have a paragraph to read in light of our virtual meeting. Pursuant to Senate Bill 2475, which was signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, this meeting of the Board of Health will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for the remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Town of Southborough's website, southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so by following manner by finding the meeting at southboroughmeetings.com, southboroughtown.com virtual meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that they are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post Southborough's website an audio and/or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, I think we have a pretty short meeting. I apologize for the late email. Did everybody get the Labor Council revisions to the contracts, which I sent this morning?
Yes.
Oh, great. It was super. Yeah, I was on the phone with Labor Council for 2 hours last night. And I just wanted to give everybody a summary of sort of that discussion, and then we can talk about it. So the first contract, which is the easy one, is Heather's to review. I'd like to make a motion to vote on the health director contract for Heather Elker as written upon her review, because I don't know if Heather's had a chance to really review it yet. I have a second.
Oh, I have a second. I was waiting to hear if Heather was going to say anything.
So now we can have discussion
Oh, there
before
she
we
is.
vote. I just wanted to give you an update of what they changed. Some of it was just typos and grammar changes. And then the substantive changes were making Heather an exempt employee. She clearly meets the exempt status, and her working 30 hours a week is not, they said it wasn't any issue at all with exempt status. So some weeks that she might need to work more or less, and that's up to her to get done what needs to get done. To Chelsea's comment about the automobile, he revised that language. He said, yes, that's there, she's covered under the automobile. So he just revised that paragraph. The leave he revised per our recommendation to just, it's 3 weeks vacation and each week consists of 30 hours. He said it's kind of irrelevant because it's a salaried position. So it's, you know, a week is a week. And so you don't have to specify the hours, but if that makes everybody feel more comfortable, he's fine putting that in. I think that was all of the revisions to Heather's contract.
Heather, do you have anything to add?
Heather, you're on mute.
I mean, I looked at it briefly this morning and I spoke yesterday about it. I think I understand the exempt is the salaried position. I mean, I think I understand salaried position. It's just a little tricky with the CARES Act funding, et cetera, that we're submitting hours, but my understanding is it's a salaried, whether hours are below or above. And then I submit hours sort of more for the reimbursement with the CARES Act money.
Right. And it's, if you think of it more, it's like, it's a mechanism of payment versus an accounting of your hours, I guess. It's just, right. It's a way to do that. Now, ultimately, if you worked more than 30 hours, the town may recoup more money than your salary. But I think that's the mechanism that we have to reimburse the best we can. So, I mean, keeping track of your hours, I see that changing after the CARES Act.
The CARES,
So,
no, I think that makes sense. That makes
Right.
sense. And I understand salaried position.
yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments?
I have one question and then a thought after that. So Mary Lou, and maybe this is for Heather too, do you know where the compensation number came from, like how that was calculated?
It was calculated by a review of public health director positions that were currently being filled, like for the market value of that position, and discussion with Heather of what she could do, what she was able to do. And so we came to that number.
The
Okay.
number's been reviewed, remember, by advisory, right?
Correct.
Right.
And I'm just speaking for me, I thought it was the 110 at a 40-hour position, just from the beginning. And then before town meeting, I found out it was 32 and now it's down to 30. So that's why I was asking if it was 110 from the beginning, regardless of the number of hours, or
Yeah,
that-
that's kind of how we got to it. It was 110 was what it was. And then what was Heather able to do and able to accomplish the job that needs to get done? And that's how we got to the 30 hours. Now, mind you, it's salaried position. So if she's got to work 40 hours in a week to get the work done, she's going to work 40 hours. If she's got to work 40 hours in a given week, she'll work 45 hours. I mean, it's a salaried position.
Okay. I mean, I think I still have, I guess I would be curious to see the comparisons that you found, because I'm not finding that unless you're looking I guess I'm looking at 40-hour positions. And so I'm just not finding those comps. So if you have those, Mary Lou, if you can send those, if you have like a grid on
Sure.
that, I don't know if you've
Sure.
tracked them.
Sure.
And so my final thought is I with that point and kind of where I was when this was first presented, leading up to this annual town meeting, and this board worked in collaboration with other boards to try to take advantage of the CARES funding. I still believe that this position should be brought before town meeting in the fall. I would feel more comfortable with, with Dr. Fazen's work that he's working on for us and having that strategic plan fresh to build our case and advocate for this position at fall town meeting versus waiting until annual town meeting. So I wanted to know, Nancy and Mary Lou, what your thoughts were on that, so then we can work on what our solid future plan is earlier rather than later.
So I feel really strongly that needs to be a year contract through June 22nd. We'll have Dr. Fazen's. I'm really struggling with being blindsided by Paul Sabelli at the last meeting. I am really concerned about only having Barbara 24 hours with all the work that we've got going. I think we're going to have to meet with the building department because I don't see how we're going to be able to meet those requirements. And we need a full-time health director. There's no question in my mind for a whole year. I think once, you know, we get to next year and start looking at budget discussions, you'll have, you know, have more information to be able to work on that. So I feel strongly about a one-year contract with Heather at the current rate. Nancy, you can. speak
I
to your
totally
thoughts.
agree with you, Mary Lou. I don't want to lose Heather, which I think could happen. I mean, I would want a year contract. I wouldn't want my life to be in limbo, wondering what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be getting paid, you know. And in light of what I'm reading, I think the fall or next winter could be kind of hairy. So to be left with skeleton staff again, I'm ready to vote today on a year contract for Heather.
Sorry, Nancy, are you worried about not having a fall town meeting when you say you're worried about the winter, or you mean for?
No, I'm worried
for
about
us
what's
to-
coming as far
Okay,
as this
okay.
variant and requiring boosters and, you know, the logistics with all of that. I just think we need a solid Board of Health staff right now. And I do feel, as Mary Lou, I feel like advisory blindsided us. I feel like Paul Sabelli, either he wasn't clear or the communication between him and advisory was skewed somehow. I don't know. Maybe it's like playing telephone, that things get messed up as they go down the line. But I would really like to have a year contract with Heather, because I'm afraid she'll leave.
And also, Chelsea, I think I got some comments back on your comment from last. This is where comments in a public meeting that, you know, there's a pecking order and police and fire are precedent. And I think I didn't quite understand at the time, but, you know, public safety, it's clear that public safety has three stools. It's fire, it's police, and it's public health. And the whole purpose of all the work that we're trying to educate residents about the need for having a strong public health department to support fire and police. Like, I don't know if that's what you meant, but that was not like, the public health director should be treated as a department head equivalent to fire and police,
I agree.
not as someone in a lower pecking order.
So, and I think my comments were, didn't come off the right way. So that's not what I was implying. I'm sorry, is somebody saying something? Okay. I think I'm just getting some feedback outside, sorry. And so my concern was actually what I just talked about with the 30 versus 40 hours in a department head. So that's really what I was coming from was, you know, I want to make sure that we're providing the department with what we need. And I have had the opportunity to talk to Heather about the 30 versus 40 hours. So I think that's something that we can leave the door open on, and you know, she can give us feedback on whether 30 is the right number for leading this department.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the year, you'll clearly know that
Mhm.
through the year.
I guess I'm sure you're aware of this, but advisory is down to 4 members. So I would rather build our case now for this position to I still believe that the town meeting needs to decide this, right? Like we can build our case and advise that this is what the Board of Health believes this department needs. And I would rather, you know, we took advantage of the CARES funding. I think we can still do a full-time position now while we wait for fall town meeting, which is October 4th. And I hear what you're saying, Nancy. I agree that we want to make sure that we don't lose Heather. But I guess then we won't know until March for FY22, because that's when it would go to town meeting. So I just think that, you know, with Dr. Faison's work, he'll be wrapped up in July, and we can start working on that with his strategic plan then. So those are my thoughts. But I hear what you're saying too.
Okay. Well, I think I'd like to take a vote on the contract for Heather Elker as advised by Labor Council.
I vote yes. Aye.
I vote no, because I would rather have done it through 12/31 and gone to fall town meeting for this.
All right, and this is Mary Lou, I vote yes. So the vote carries. Next is Dennis's contract, which probably an hour and a half of the 2-hour conversation with Labor Council was on Dennis's contract. And the Labor Council, apparently Dennis's contract has never gone to Labor Council before. And Labor Council has very strong opinions that Dennis is working more as an employee than or we're requiring him to work more as an employee than an independent contractor. An independent contractor is supposed to be completely independent. They decide when they work, how they work, what they do. No one gives them direction on priorities. Dennis is sometimes required to go to court on behalf of the town. And he said that's absolutely not the role of an independent contractor. And I expressed my concern that, we don't have a budget for an employee. And here we are at, June 30th, and Dennis has been doing this for several years, had been reviewed by town council. In fact, his contract last year had very specific times that he had to be in the office and had to answer phone calls and all of that. And Labor Council was like, that is completely contradictory to independent contractor status. And so he said he never reviewed that. So he reluctantly agreed to send this contract as is, but wants us to revisit an inspector being an employee because of the volume of the work, the priority of the work, and the type of work that the town is requiring to be done. So what you have is his revised version of the independent contractor. And he said that he is comfortable doing this as long as Dennis can decide when he works and how often he works. He doesn't use any town equipment or to do any of his work. He has to have all his own equipment, all his own everything to do the work that needs to get done. And he wants us to revisit that as soon as possible. So our fall town meeting may be much more complicated for us because I really want to go to town meeting for Barbara's increased hours, because I don't know how we're going to do that. And we can talk about that at a later point, but now potentially Dennis. So I want to just make a motion to have a discussion about Dennis's contract. You have a second?
Second.
Okay, so
Did you send that to me, Mary Lou? I'm sorry.
I did this morning, Dennis.
Dennis, I'll forward it to you. It probably came through in your cell or email.
Oh, sorry, it did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been looking for it. All right.
It was just emailed like at 7:40.
Right.
Yeah, Barbara, can you send it to Charter?
Yep.
You. Does it make any difference that this was a mutually agreed upon contract? Curious,
Yeah,
right?
we talked about that. And we talked about that this is what, you did. And I think the person that I spoke to was kind of a very strict letter of the law kind of person. And he is just concerned about independent contractor status versus employee status. And when if you're directed to do things or when to do things, that creates an issue. And then if you need to go to court, that's completely, so I don't know who would go to court if you didn't go to court. So we need your expertise, but no, I did explain all that. And I explained to him, you know, that you've been doing this for several years.
About 15.
Yeah.
Only 15?
15.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and from time to time, the town did not want to hire me as an employee. For
Oh,
some
I
reason.
know. And I know that's why you are an independent contractor, because they didn't want an employee. I know that for a fact, but here we are. Apparently that those earlier contracts were never reviewed by Labor Council. They
Yeah,
were
I don't-
only reviewed by Town Council. And Town Council agreed to that.
So what is the next step, or on the table, or what?
So I think that's what we have to have a discussion about, but I think our next step is to agree to the contract as Labor Council reviewed and sent forward, because he sent it forward, but he would like us to continue discussion about whether we should have an inspector as an employee because of the work that's done. So I think that I want to vote on the contract as is, because that's what we agreed and that's what they agreed. But I think that the board needs to really think, and maybe after Dr. Fazen's recommendations, it may be some hard decisions on figuring out what we do in 22. How do we do this and get done what needs to get done? So
Did you see what Tim was texting, that it's an IRS thing? Tim
Well,
Lit was,
I didn't see, but it's IRS and labor laws are
Okay.
what's dictating this. I don't know, I don't see the chat. Oh, here we go.
it just came
Okay.
through on the bottom.
Yeah, I got
think.
it. I got it. So I don't know, Nancy or Chelsea, do you have any other thoughts?
So did Labor Council advise that we should change this in FY 21? Like if there's tax implications to this, I think the sooner we can get it right, the better. And so did he encourage us to do it during this fiscal year?
He didn't specify. He just
Okay.
said, I can agree to this contract as he sent us in hopes that you will look at revisiting it for the future. And he wrote the contract for a year, so I'm assuming he's
Okay.
agreeing. I mean, he put the dates in, so it's for 1 year. So he's assuming that we're gonna have that discussion over the next year and and think about how we're gonna manage inspections in
Yeah.
beginning in 22.
Okay,
And
so
and
I mean,
I'm sorry, Nancy.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think we need to not necessarily worry about where the budget lies for this. I think it's more important that we get it right. So I would be okay with approving this today and trying to work through this sooner rather than later if Dennis is
Yeah.
amenable to that.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're trying to right or wrong for 15 years or 1 year.
Oh, my God.
And I get, it's fine. I'm not, I'm fairly easygoing as far as I like working and what have you. And this has basically been the contract without a whole lot of changes for the past dozen years, I believe. So yeah, I'm fine with that for now. And I believe I haven't read the whole thing, but I do believe at the end of the statement, it is probably 30 days. Anybody can change the contract or get out of the contract. So I think that gives you an out to actually change it or to review it and change it.
Right.
Uh,
But I think it's, Dennis, it's coming down to I think it's not going to be a matter of changing the contract. It's going to be a matter of, do you come employment status versus
Right.
contractor status, right?
I would, well, I
But you
guess-
need 30 days notice is what you're saying. Absolutely. You're right. If that changed, and obviously
Correct.
there has to be more discussion about that, because I don't believe that you can get done the work that you need to do in 19 and a half hours. You can speak to that, but
Well, I think we need to look at the fact too, that now we have a public health director who can't do inspections and things like that. So it might behoove us for him to be an employee. You
Yeah.
know, where, what's that?
I would have to
sorry.
think more. I think, this
Yeah.
is, this is a change at the end of
right.
10 minutes. Yeah, I would certainly love to discuss it.
Okay.
And yes, to vote on the contract now to keep it going, yes. Yeah, no sense of not, I believe.
And I think, Dennis, the major difference between your past contracts and this current contract is that you don't use town equipment, but I don't think you really do anyway at this point. It's just taking that language out. But I mean, if there's a circumstance where you need something, I'm not worried about that. And then the other is that you don't have specific hours or time that you have to work. You control the hours. So in the contract, it said 7, you would do the inspections between the hours of 7 and 3:30 on Monday through Friday. And he didn't like that language at all. You decide when you do the inspections. You communicate with the residents and do it. And maybe you're within that time frame, but he didn't like that language in the contract, so that came out. But those were the two major differences.
Yeah, so over the years, we've been using those hours, so people know those are the hours that they can actually work with me or get a hold of me or whatever. That's why they're there. And I think they kind of should stay that way.
Yeah,
Everybody knows I work a full day and a half Wednesday or whatever it is.
yeah,
I'm out of there at noontime on Thursday. So those are kind of things that are, steady. Most of the people that I deal with realize that. So there's no sense of me just saying, well, I'll just come in on, Wednesday morning and Friday afternoon or next Saturday or what have you. So I want to keep the hours fairly stable.
but that's the whole point. You want to keep it, and that's the hours, right? It's just not written into your contract, so the town isn't holding you accountable to those hours, but those are the hours you want to work, and that's fine. That's great. That works.
So yeah,
Okay.
figure it out.
Any other discussion? Nancy, do you have any?
No, nope.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to vote on Dennis Costello's contract as revised by Labor Council to run through June of 22, and that the board will revisit the whole independent contractor employment status issue over the next year.
I second the motion and vote aye. Did I do that
Chelsea,
wrong?
I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I can't see my screen very well. Am I on mute now? No.
No,
And this is on the contract that Labor Council sent that you forwarded this morning, right?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, I vote aye. Thank you.
And I vote aye, and so the motion carries. Paul Pazinski's agreement contract, he didn't have time to review that. He had some serious concerns about that. Just want to put that out. He said you can't pay somebody a stipend or a retainer or anything if they're an independent contractor. And he said you can't even put language in there that you have a minimum of 2 hours pay if you come in. I did reference the firefighters that do that, and he said firefighters are town employees and they're also regulated by a union. So so that's the reason they do that, and they can do that. So he said an independent contractor, that doesn't fit any of the criteria as an independent contractor. So I think we have to have more discussion about how Paul can support the work, and maybe more discussion with legal counsel and figure that out. So so that's where we stand on Paul's contract.
Oh, dear. Do you want him to talk?
Yeah, Paul, can you hear?
I've asked him to unmute. There we go. Board of Health is in a meeting right now. Please call back in 30 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I don't know anything about Labor Council. I haven't had any discussion with Labor Council. I have nothing, I haven't seen anything to review Labor Council. All I had was the proposed contract that the Board of Health issued to me at the last meeting, and asked that I look at that and consider that. And I responded to the board in a letter that I sent. And apparently that's the letter that the Labor Council must reference. But apparently there appears to be some gaps as to what his understanding is and what my understanding is. I'm not a lawyer, so I have no idea what he's referring to as far as having to be an employee. I don't care about the particular language. All I want to say is call it, all I'm saying is that there should be, as far as I'm concerned, some sort of retention, call it what you will, call it a remuneration, call it a stipend, call it something to just say, we're offering you a certain sum of money so that you will be available. That's all. Because it could be that I, as a independent contractor, could sign a contract, and I will have to, for sure, I've already talked to my own counsel. I will have to get a lot of my own insurance, my liability insurance, car insurance additional, which is a certain sum of money which I've been paying. It's an additional to the regular car insurance. There's a lot of things like that, plus of course being my own, having to pay my own Social Security, so forth. So it could be conceivable that I may not even be called to do any work, but yet I will have expended a certain sum of money as an independent contractor. I don't work for any other town. So that was a concern to me, that I could spend money on my own and just never be compensated or never be called by the town of Southborough. So I'm not sure if that's clear, but you got my letter, I believe. And I would, if you want to discuss that letter that I sent with any of the particulars, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Paul,
yes.
I just want, yeah, we did. So Labor Council didn't come back with anything. They said there were too many questions, and it's a matter of independent contractor status versus employee status and how you do work. And so I understand all of what you're saying and what you said in your letter. I get it. If you know you're an independent contractor, it costs you money to be an independent contractor, and you have to have enough work to be able to compensate for that. I get all that. I think Labor Council is more concerned of those things are reflective of an employee, not independent contractor. So in other words, if you're an independent contractor, you can't get that set amount of money. You can't bill in the way that we talked about. So so the question I think is going to be before the board is, do they want to bring you on as an employee like you were last year, or do we figure out the language of the contract that meets both your needs and the town needs? And he hasn't had a chance to have that thorough discussion yet. And where Dennis is doing the primary work, his contract was most important. And so that's why you got his done. But the Labor Council is willing to have more discussion about it. We just wasn't able to get to that place last night at, 7 o'clock last night.
Thank you, Mary Lou, for that clarification. And yeah, that's why I also in my letter said that there was no start time of July 1st. Let this work out with the board, the Labor Council, see what happens over the summer, if anything can be worked out. I'm available. You know where I live. You know my cell phone numbers. Call me if I can be of assistance to you. That's fine.
Oh.
I've enjoyed working for the town very much for the last almost 30 years. And if there could be something worked out, which is mutually agreeable to both of us, that's great.
Yeah, and I'm confident something will get worked out.
Yeah.
I think the timing, right now being the end of the fiscal year and then being July 4th weekend and all that, but I'm confident we can get something figured out. So thanks for your patience with that. And I think we need to figure out exactly what we need and what
Mhm.
hours, and then have that discussion with Labor Council more extensively as to what we can do, what we can write in a contract, and how that all works.
Yeah, I'd be sad to be done with you, Paul. I think we still need you. But again, we want it to be something you can work with as well. We don't want you to end up in the red because you've had to pay all this or black. I don't even know. Can you tell I'm not a financial person, but you know what I'm saying? Spending more for insurance than you're actually getting. So,
Right. Exactly.
but I think we'll be able to come up with something. So, we can still tap into your wealth of knowledge and your expertise that is so vital to the
Yeah.
town.
And also for the record, Barbara could, you can call me anytime, well, up until 10, 11:30 at night, 7 days a week. Got my cell phone. I make that available to anybody and everybody. I'm not hesitant. I love talking with people over the phone, in or person. If there's any questions, regardless of any contract, I'm not asking for compensation, but any question comes up, any query comes up, I do get calls sometimes from some of the Board of Selectmen members and some of the other officials in town who are thinking of selling their home or wanting to expand or whatever, and from other developers, and I don't mind. I'm not asking to be compensated for every phone call. So don't hesitate to call if you got any questions, anything comes up.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
And,
Paul.
That's very generous of you, and your service is just so well regarded, and I don't know, I don't even have words to say like
Yeah, there aren't.
how much you mean to the town and what you've done for the town. And I know this isn't the last meeting because we're going to figure this out. So it's just till we get to figuring it out. But thank you for offering that, and it's much appreciated.
Yes.
Well, you're entirely welcome, and thank you also for all the years of working for the town of Southborough. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Just excuse me for 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Out there. So should I need to go on vacation, and things need to be done, can Paul do that?
That's a good question, Dennis, because we need to, and that's one reason why we need to get this resolved. And the Labor Council asked me this. Because I did say that, I said, Paul would cover vacations, he would cover time when Dennis couldn't cover. And, it's a very important role for our town. And he says, well, what has he done in the past? And I said, I don't know, but I know I didn't talk to him about this, but in the past, you've had discussion with other inspectors in other towns to cover if something came up while you were on vacation. How does that work? Was there ever an agreement in place to do that, or?
No, with my other towns, my other towns, I didn't have a budget for that. So I had to figure all this out for myself. In Southborough, Paul and I covered for each other. So if Paul was away, if there was anything extra to do, I would do, and the same on his end. So if I was gone for a week, 10 days, and that's it. Then I got 10 days coverage just by him being there.
Right.
So if Paul was gone on the, Mondays, Tuesdays and whatever, then I could cover that. So that's the way it has worked in Southborough. And what have you. So
Paul, you have your hand up?
I just wanted, from my perspective, in the past, this is before Dennis, BD, before Dennis. When I was an agent for the board, I wasn't even a public health director, I was an agent for the board. Different towns like in Ashland, Mark Orem, Westboro, Paul McNulty, Jack Wallace in Northborough would call and say, can you cover for me? I'm going to be away or whatever for any emergencies come up, any inspections that are going to be needed, any soil test witnessing. I would say yes. No, I never asked, but they would provide me with some sort of remuneration. I got a check from Ashland. I got money from Northborough. It was just $150 for 3 weeks or whatever. They were just basically, pay for me to be available, so I wouldn't go running away if they needed to call. So that's where the whole concept of some sort of remuneration or retention or whatever came from. Now, maybe that was all illegal. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, like,
So-
was this figured into their budget, or were they just sort of, if
I
they
don't
had
know whether they got
extra money, you know how there's like, sometimes there's
Yeah.
extra
So,
fund
yeah.
money, I don't know.
Yeah, so that worked many years ago,
Right.
because there was a lot of things that were done by verbal handshake and, you cover
Okay.
me, I'm on the salary in this town, I'll cover you if you need anything done, and it's a different day and a different
Yeah.
time, and and litigation is in a much different place than it was 10, 15 years ago. So even if we got someone from another town to cover, we would have to have some kind of an agreement in place in order to cover that person and our town legally.
Okay.
So
And then
go ahead, Paul.
further, again, for the record, after a while, what we did is the towns, I think, felt sort of not sure, even though they had town administrator, town manager. The money the check was issued by those towns, but it came from an envelope with the town administrator, not from the Board of Health in those towns. The other thing is then we started signing memorandum of understanding,
Right.
MOUs, which would be mutual, so that when I went away, before there was Dennis, we had this memorandum of understanding for sharing services, if you will, between towns. I don't know where those MOUs are, whether they could be resurrected or found, but that's neither here nor there. That was how it was done when this question came up of what was done in the past.
And I think those are all some of the discussions that we need to have. But Dennis, I guess to more urgent, are you thinking like, you might go away for a couple of weeks in July or August, and that will expedite us to get in a resolution to Paul helping with that sooner than later?
you predict to me when the Canadian border will be open.
Okay, all right, so we need to get working on this ASAP. That gives us enough reason to work on it. I know you are really excited to get back up there, so I guess I will just assure you it's a priority and we will work on it.
Mary Lou, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I assume we're not the only town that needs like backup coverage like this. Do you have any contacts that you can talk to see what they're currently doing? I understand what the past history's been, but do you know of any
Yeah.
other towns?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely reach out to a few towns. I mostly want to talk to towns that have high Title V requirements, because that's a little bit different than some of the others. And
Right.
so I know those towns. Dennis knows those towns. Paul knows those towns. If you guys want to put feelers out there too, and that might help our discussion as well. And this is part of, I think, what what Dr. Faison is going to review as well is how do we ensure that we get everything done that needs to get done? That's the most cost-effective and efficient way to do it. And, you know, clearly this is one of the things, how they're going to cover that.
Okay.
I mean, it may be that in 22, we work out a shared services agreement with one other town, and we have an inspector that is an employee of one town, but shares services with the other town, and it's, you know, it's a win-win for both towns, but yet that person is an employee and therefore can go to court, can, you know, do all those things. And that's been part of the discussion. And so I think that will continue to be part of a discussion. It can't really be a lot of towns because we have such a high need, but maybe one other town, you know, maybe it's a Boylston collaboration or shared services for just inspectional services for the town of Boylston. And maybe that's a discussion we need to start to think about. And so I think there's a lot of work we still need to do. But this contract in place now will at least get us what we need, and give us the opportunity to kind of do some more homework.
Very good.
So I'd like to vote on Dennis's contract as written by Labor Council for July 1 through June 30th of 22, and that we will continue to review and revise.
I thought we already voted on
we
Dennis.
already
Oh,
voted.
sorry,
We did.
sorry.
Okay.
Did that. So I think we've covered everything for the contracts for now, and
Okay.
and
Were
we'll
we gonna do Taylor's extension?
Taylor's extension was voted on at the last meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So yeah, Taylor's is good. I think the last thing on our agenda is that Chelsea was going to give an update on the noise bylaw.
Oh, right.
Thank you. So the selectmen voted last week on the charge. The charge has been posted, and the application or the volunteer request form is available for that committee. And I believe we're looking to do interviews this.
Uh-oh, she froze. Well, she froze, so hopefully she'll come.
Okay.
Selectmen are looking to do interviews on July 13th. And I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, you can now.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, sorry. I guess I've unstable internet. And so I'm not sure where I lost you, but there was the charge includes a public health ex officio member, and then the police chief, and then 5 residents at large. There was no way to designate a resident employee
Okay.
on the charge. But I did convey to the selectmen the interest on this board, not necessarily from the 3 board members here, but from kind of the group in general, to make sure that Board of Health has a say into what gets written. So I think, you know, if Heather is willing to be that Board of Health representative, I think we'll have a voice there, and advisory, and also it's open, you know, in case anybody else wants to apply as a resident at large.
Great. Okay.
So Taylor could still apply
Yes.
as a resident at large. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that update. Anybody
Sure.
have any thoughts or questions on that?
No?
Okay, so what do we see next steps for trying to figure out Dennis's coverage and Paul's working relationship going forward? How do we want to approach that?
I'd like to know more like what his ideal what he would like, and then see what we can do to accommodate it if it's feasible, I guess.
So the easiest thing would be to continue with Paul. I mean, that would be the, you know, whether you have to make them an employee, or what have you. And then I guess you go down from there.
Oh my God.
But I believe you're correct, and it may have to be an employee. I sometimes cover Northborough for 20 years, but I am still considered an employee there.
Okay,
Well, I'm basically a special employee. That's how they've handled that. I'm not sure if you make any, I'm not sure how you do that. But I
okay,
get a letter of special employee for 6 months or a year, whatever I get, whenever they need me.
so can I interrupt you? Is that something that would work for Paul if we looked at what the agreement you have with Northborough and see if it's something we could use for Paul?
It's possible. I don't know the, that's what they do. I'm saying, so that's what,
Okay,
like I say, other than that, in the town of Boylston, it's kind of like, it's been for myself. And that's
Right.
it's difficult.
But you're an employee in Boylston.
Am.
Yeah.
But we don't have we don't have a budget for any other employees.
right,
Right.
okay.
So I'm at the mercy of people helping me, which probably is illegal. but hey, this is what you got.
Right.
Basically.
I know. Well, I know. His to throw a lot of money into public health, so the work behind the scenes to get things done, I guess, but.
Exactly.
Paul?
Sure.
There is a designation called special municipal employee. That's something you can talk to Labor Council about. That's the title. And I don't know what I know at one time when I was a elected official and I got money being an elected official like you do, I was called a special municipal employee for other purposes. And I don't know what that means, quite frankly. But at the time I could qualify for health insurance, and this is going way back in the 1970s,
Oh, wow, yeah,
60s, late 60s and so forth, when I was elected planning board member, elected board of health member, so forth. But that's what they call it.
That is still a designation, and it actually, I was doing some work for DPH and I had to be reviewed to see if I was considered as a board member, a special town employee. I don't receive any compensation for the board position, so they designated that I was not. But yeah, that is a designation we could look at and see if that's maybe the best way to go about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gotta be a way, we just have to figure this out.
Okay, Tim's given us an update. Special municipal employees have to do with ethics laws and provide some protection to you. Appear before another board. Yeah, and that's why I had to go before, because of my work at DPH, because I'm already on a board at a health department and I'm doing public health work. So they cleared me that the work was completely different and not connected. So I wasn't designated as a special municipal employee, but the ethics commission said I could be if I wanted to be. But I don't know what that would do for the town or not. So I think we just need to do some homework.
Okay,
And I don't believe that special municipal employees apply to actually employees of the town. I think it has to do with volunteers, like board members.
oh,
And then
okay,
what they do
All having trouble today.
Right. So
with
it
their
is,
job. So I don't think that would be relevant for the contract.
Okay. all right, thanks.
I
well,
have,
Because I have no clue.
it might be Chelsea, only because if Paul's a per diem, like if he's only working part-time and getting compensated, I think it could fall into that category.
Okay.
But so Paul, one thing, if Paul was an employee and getting paid a regular salary, like, or whatever, whatever he was getting paid, whereas if he's per diem and is only gonna work, on a per diem status, it might fall under the case of a special municipal employee. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it may or may not, but I think we should just look at all angles and just see what makes the most sense for Paul.
Absolutely. Yep.
Just to give you an update. So I am appointed by John Kader, which is a town administrator of Southborough. What he does, he appoints me as the position of temporary part-time health agent, effective date, to another date. That's the designation.
Okay.
Administrator. But then again, they're not an elected board, so he may be the.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But-
So that would be the type of thing that the footfall under this board to appoint you as the, temporary health and whatever. So, okay, that's helpful, Dennis. Thanks.
I've got to get out of here. I've got people
Hey.
jumping.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for
Bye,
attending,
Dennis.
Dennis.
Okay,
All right, so let me know if you have any questions on it as written. Otherwise, we voted to approve it as long as you approve it. So we move.
right.
forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right. I'll talk to you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Have a good day, Dennis.
I will.
So
Mhm.
how do we want to, do we want to set up another meeting like right after the 4th? I know that as soon as the Canadian border opens, Dennis is going to want to go. So I don't think we want to
Absolutely.
wait until we don't have anything in place and then Dennis is going away for 2 weeks and we have nobody for 2 weeks. So I think,
So I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll be back next Friday, but I have Wi-Fi where I'm at. So if it's a Zoom meeting, I could do it.
okay. Chelsea, you have
Yep,
any
I'm
thoughts?
available. I'm available via Zoom as well. I'll be back on the 12th.
Okay.
In Southborough.
Well, I think it's
Okay.
probably gonna take us a little time to kind of do what we need to do on,
Mhm.
and especially over the 4th. So let's see, let me see calendar here. So if we look at, you're back on 12th, which is.
And
on-
I work the 13th and the
Okay,
15th.
13 and 15. How is the 14th is a Wednesday?
I could do the 14th.
I could do only, I couldn't go past probably 8:45. I just have a kid doctor appointment that I need to go to.
Yeah, no, you got to
So
do it.
do
You
you want to do, you want to do later?
I could do later. Sure.
Maybe you say 1 o'clock? That work?
Perfect.
No, it's
Okay.
a lengthy appointment.
You pick a time. You pick a time.
Is we do like 4? Is that okay?
Is
Yeah.
that all right with you, Barbara?
Yeah,
I should be
Yeah.
back by then.
And I think
Okay.
it should be, it should be a short.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to communicate. It's so hard with a 3-member board because if I communicate with one person, there's a quorum. And
I know.
so I think I'll engage Labor Council again in that discussion because we already sort of started that. And then
Okay.
I might send you both information. We can't
Okay.
have a discussion on email, but at least I can keep informing you. And I
Okay.
don't think there's anything wrong with me doing that.
Okay.
So I'll send you information and updates from Labor Council as I get them, and then
Okay.
we can have a discussion on that. And Paul, as soon as I get anything, I'll obviously send it to you as well, so that you have the same information.
Thank you.
And Mary Lou, if there's any contacts that you have that you want to kind of divide and conquer, and I'm happy to reach out to
Great.
other towns and see if what they do, and if you have ones that you know of, if you just want to send me a list, I'm happy to reach out.
Yeah.
And I
sure.
have more time now too that I'm done with all my mom's craziness. So
Okay, that's
Or
I guess
house and everything.
helpful. Barbara, you have a list of the towns that are primarily Title V?
I don't have a list here, but it's easy to get.
Okay. And I'm thinking that maybe you can send those to all three of us with the towns that are primarily Title V. And then if you have the health director and a phone number,
Mhm.
and then once we get that, we can decide who calls who and just
Okay.
get information. So like you said, divide and conquer and get that. So maybe like 5 or 6 of the top towns. Paul, you know, I know them on the top of my head.
Yeah,
So
I can give them to you right now if you want.
yeah. If you can give those to Barbara and she can just send
Okay.
them out, that would be awesome.
I can do that.
All right.
And then Paul, if there's someone else related to this inspectional sharing kind of thing, if there's some other person you think we should talk to, if you can just include that on the list, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Now, contracts, am I printing them out so everybody can sign or?
Yes, I think we require everybody, did he put everybody's signature on it?
No, not everybody needs to sign them.
On Heather's, it has all 3 signatures. So if everybody can kind of go by the Board of Health at some point to sign Heather's contract, Heather and Dennis's contracts, that would be
Okay.
great.
So when will you have those available, Barbara? Could I
Um,
go tomorrow morning?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Sounds good.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, stay cool, everybody.
Nancy, second.
Yeah. Oh, a second.
Um, and I would vote to adjourn. How do you vote? Nancy,
Aye.
Chelsea? Oh, we lost Chelsea. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Oh, all right.
Bye.
Stay
and-
cool.
and you want Zoom next time, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Like that-
Barbara.
No, yep. Okay, end the meeting.